The first two videos in this three-part series focused on the results of a government willing to sacrifice principle for power. Philosopher Roger Trigg said, "Any commitment depends on two distinct elements. It presupposes certain beliefs to be true and involves a personal dedication to the actions implied by them." Author J.P. Moreland says, "We must be convinced that change is needed, and we must be willing to pay the price to bring about that change." The contributors to this video series, teachers, parents, and business people, believe that change is necessary, that all our children are already under pressure, and that time is running out. However, after seeing the reports, if you, as a member of the Christian community in general, see no real necessity for action, then change is very unlikely. On a personal note, when I, as a dissenting member and corroborated by 5 of the 11 trustees present, noted the subterfuge involved in stripping your rights, I sought to inform the Christian community at large. It is my hope, at least, that there are now few parents among us that believe things are pretty much the same as it was during our school days, nor have the illusion that the government is acting on our behalf. In Ontario and other provinces where none of the school taxes we pay are available to us, it is evident that individuals, churches, and business people must be willing to examine their priorities to meet this attack. It is evident that homeschooling, Christian schooling, and blended variations of those alternatives must be considered more seriously. It has been reported that 73 weeks of income are needed each year for the average North American family, and in such an environment, many parents would conclude Christian education is out of the question. However, many studies also indicate that by making better choices, a great deal of spending can be trimmed. There are many free budgeting services and software programs, some specifically Christian, that show that by following simple principles, a budget that may seem to be spiraling out of control can be tamed. Sometimes it may be a simple evaluation of whether a $200 a month cable package is a real essential, or whether the replacement of a family car with a newer model can be deferred for a year or two. Often, priority rather than income is the deciding factor. In any case, the principle of equal sacrifice rather than equal tuition is already being applied to many Christian projects across the world. This would allow those families of more modest income to attend the Christian school and break the stereotype of an elitist school for the rich. As far as the church support goes, many churches are now allocating a certain part of their mission budget for local projects. And if the missions committee were made aware of both the urgency and the opportunity of equipping young Christians to impact the world, they may look more favorably upon facility and possible financial support. Finally, Christian business people who want to equip our young people to reach a lost world may be eager to provide bursaries towards this important ministry. Although some well-meaning Christian schools offer little more than babysitting services and turn out poorly prepared students who underachieve, those with a more structured curriculum and dedicated staff show outstanding results, as is evidenced by our overrepresentation in the top prizes that are awarded nationally. The expectation of standards, the involvement and teamwork between dedicated teachers and committed parents are certainly a winning combination. The Christian school boards, in turn, should have a long-term goal of providing their staff with wages that will allow their teachers to make long-term commitments to the school, and provision should be made for academic growth. On the other hand, it is quite reasonable to expect the teachers will, themselves, be committed to model Christian behavior in their personal lives, their love of learning, and dedication to spiritual growth. In fact, an application process similar to that of our missionary teachers overseas would be very appropriate, and qualifications along the lines of some of our Christian teacher organizations should be pursued either formally or informally. Our elementary school children should be introduced to logic and reasoning, and our parents should know that, especially with our older students, we will not avoid difficult topics, for many of these students are about to be thrust into an environment where no such restrictions will apply.
All good people are appalled by the sufferings of the innocent. When an innocent person is struck by a painful disease, or tortured or murdered, we naturally feel sadness and helplessness and often rage. Many people have claimed that such suffering is a proof that God does not exist. Their argument goes like this: God is all good and all powerful. Such a God would not permit unnecessary suffering, yet we constantly observe unjust suffering. Therefore, at least one of the premises about God must be false. Either God is not all good, or he is not all powerful, or he just doesn't exist. What's wrong with this argument?
It would also be a mistake to assume that all non-Christian sources have no truth value, for the them and us approach is not reality and shuts down our effectiveness.
Well, the claim that all skeptics about Darwinian orthodoxy or Christian fundamentalists stands refuted by me. It's obviously not true. I'm neither Christian nor a fundamentalist. But lots and lots of people are skeptical in the scientific community. I know dozens of mathematicians who scratch their head and say, you guys think this is the way life originated? It's absolutely a preposterous theory. Well, in 1973, I was a postdoc in molecular biology at Columbia University. And it was a time really of a lot of intense discussion. I had a lot of friends who were postdocs. Subjects came up naturally, and I just happened to come across a copy of the Wistar Symposium that was held in 1966 in Philadelphia. It's a collection of essays about Darwinian theory. And I read Murray Eden's article, a critical article about Darwinian theory, and Marcel Schutzenberger's critical argument about Darwinian theory. And I started talking about it with the other postdoctoral fellows, people who were working in the laboratory at the time. And I discovered, somewhat to my own surprise, that the arguments, which seemed so very credible, very important, went virtually unanswered among the biologists that I knew, who tended to dismiss the arguments in a way that suggested that they hadn't really understood them, and if they had understood them, were not prepared to respond to them. And that was the beginning of my skepticism about Darwinian theory. The idea that science is a uniquely self-critical institution is, of course, preposterous. Scientists are no more self-critical than anyone else. They hate to be criticized, and they never criticize themselves. Given the enormously long span of human history, this is a prediction that one would expect to be true, and it is true. One of the reasons that people embrace Darwinian orthodoxy with such an unholy zealousness is just that it gives them access to power. It's as simple as that. Power over education, power over political decisions, power over funding, and power over the media. No one in a society which is openly contemptuous of religious expression in any form wants to be identified with the side at which the intellectuals and the leaders of taste and opinion are going to snicker. This again is human nature. We would not expect a philosopher to be boisterous in his denunciation of Darwinian theory if it could cause people at the faculty club to whisper about him. And that's exactly what we find. Tremendous amount of pressure in this society or any other to conform to socially accepted beliefs, strategies of evidence appraisal and the like. Well, the idea that the scientific enterprise is governed by a majority of opinion, it's not entirely a foolish idea. I mean, we can't get rid of it completely and say that the truth is so unassailable that it can be discovered by one individual, inevitably running against the tide of every other individual. There has to be some consensus on some points of view of science. And to suggest that the fact that so many biologists are willing publicly to endorse Darwinian theory is of no account is foolish. To a certain extent, I do agree with that. It is important to present within an educational establishment what is the standard, the mainstream, the canonical view. There's no question about that. But at the same time, for heaven's sake, let's open up the discussion a little bit and present some countervailing views, at least to the extent of appraising Darwinian theory in the context that realistically portrays it for what it is. A kind of amusing 19th century collection of anecdotes that is utterly unlike anything we see in the serious sciences. That would be my favorite position. Yeah, biologists do agree that this is the correct theory for the origin and diversification of life, but here are some points you should consider as well. 1, the theory doesn't have any substance. 2, it's preposterous. 3, it's not supported by the evidence. And 4, the fact that the biologists are uniformly in agreement about this issue could as well be explained by some solid Marxist interpretation of their economic interests. That would satisfy me.
In video 2, I shared Mark Kennedy's report on the state of things in Canada and the current pressure our young people deal with today. But when Mark told me this report was from a group of Christian high schools, it illustrated there was a disconnect between Christian theory and children actually knowing themselves to be precious and set apart for His glory. Certainly many Christian schools need to be more articulate and direct in helping their students catch this vision. The sad and limited choices the secular schools suggest often appear to be the only game in town if young people have not seen vibrant alternatives modeled in the lives of their teachers who, the students know, are willing to invest in their lives. I encourage my colleagues, both in the secular and Christian schools, to equip yourselves to be ready to give an answer for the hope that is within you. Your academic competency is not doubted. May I encourage you to investigate some training options such as the Truth Project, ACSI qualifications, or other courses specifically geared to help your Christian students mature. Those teachers in Christian school may have a freer hand, but should make sure your board shares the vision of full engagement. Be prepared to gently explain this vision to parents who might still think avoidance of controversial topics is the only strategy. To those teachers in secular school who are more restricted, contact your local Christian school or church and offer your time to conduct training sessions such as Teen Alpha or other programs designed to give teens some tools to discern truth from fiction. Remember, the alarming exodus of our young people is not based on amazingly logical or persuasive countervailing arguments, nor even, as you have seen here, a monolithic opposition. It is rather that it has been long seen as the only option. Courses such as the ones I mentioned will not only encourage you, but assist you to share the good news. To finish, I include some clips from a school that is implementing many of these principles. It happens to be a mission school, but the clips are chiefly included to illustrate the attributes we have been talking about.
Black Forest Academy, to meet the needs of missionary families in the region and provide affordable faith-based learning for their children. It has grown into a boarding school serving over 300 students on 3 distinct campuses. Our national and international accreditation, our rigorous academics, and our co-curricular options prepare students for North American universities and other English-speaking colleges worldwide. Our heart and central focus is to continue to support missionary families. We remain faithful to that cause by serving students from over 50 countries throughout Europe, Central Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, as family partners ensuring a quality education and preparation for a life of impact.
One thing I really appreciate and love about BFA is just the staff.
There's just better interaction between students and teachers.
For my parents, they knew I was in good hands and they knew that this was going to help me.
The people around you are always willing to help because they love us.
It's just a comfortable environment to grow.
My parents wanted a place that could help me do both education and my faith.
I've really been challenged to make my spiritual life my own.
BFA really helps, I guess, spiritually. Also, there's definitely growth.
Applying your faith to everyday situations has helped me grow a lot.
I think the teachers here have a heart to want to serve and to want to teach us and I guess prepare us to be leaders of the next generation.
My previous videos speak of secular schools I continue to teach at and reports from my colleagues in these schools. These remarks are likewise drawn from my actual experiences at BFA, and the results are not theoretical. I once did an anonymous survey with one of my senior classes, asking who they took as their role models. Unlike the answers I receive over here, which mostly mention current rock stars or actors, these students overwhelmingly identified their parents as their heroes. These multilingual, multicultural, highly qualified students could and do go anywhere in the world, often follow in their parents' footsteps, and have other careers that impact the world positively, rather than acting as passive receptors of the latest fad. Thanks for watching this series. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about the content. And for those who would like more information about the Black Forest Academy, drop me a line or contact teachbeyond.org directly. Thanks for your time.